This video will analyze the two latest Metallica efforts, Lulu and... just kidding. Death Magnetic and Hardwired to Self-Destruct. Both albums are seen as a return for Metallica when you compare it to their experimental albums. While they will never capture the magic of their older albums, they still have a lot of good stuff on them that can satisfy both the casual and the dedicated fan. Both of these albums are seen as sisters in the 21st century incarnation of Metallica. Why? Because they have white album covers. Yes, there are two Metallica white albums. Uh-oh, cue the SJW races. Why did Metallica have two white albums and one black album? Shut the F up. We can all debate on which of the two white albums is truly the better one. Some say Hardwired, some say Magnetic, but at least we can look at each album's strengths and weaknesses to help decide. So here's the categories we gloss over. Production and sound, essentially how the album feels to the ears. Structure is basically how the album flows and how each song is placed. Songwriting and musicianship is more about the songwriting, of course. Themes and lyrics pretty much are self-explanatory. Songs pretty much sums up which songs are good and which songs are not, at least in my opinion. Yep, it's my opinion, but I made a video on the internet, so my opinion's true. Magnetic was notable for being the first album since 1988 not to be produced by Bob Rock. Instead, the band went with Rick Rubin, which should have been a big move on paper. Upon being released, however, Magnetic was almost immediately shunned by listeners and audiophiles alike on how bad Magnetic sounds. The biggest culprit is the compression and the clipping, due to an effort for some odd reason to make the sound louder than it needed to be, a trend of the so-called loudness wars. In fact, many fans prefer the versions released for Guitar Hero because they're far less compressed. Even Ted Jensen, the mastering engineer for Sterling Sound, was quoted as saying, "The mixes were brick-walled before they arrived at my place." Hardwired, on the other hand, sounds great. This time being produced by Greg Fidelman, who engineered and mixed Death Magnetic, this album appears they have learned their mistakes, because while Hardwired is loud, it doesn't drown out everything else like Death Magnetic does. You feel every kick of the bass drum, every finger pick of the bass, and the guitars have much more of a crunch to them. In terms of Hetfield's vocals, they're great on both albums, but I do feel he sounds better on Hardwired. It's very close to him sounding like his younger self from the Black Album. So it's a no-brainer when it comes to production. The point here goes to Hardwired. Structure-wise, Death Magnetic is one disc put together just like any of the old 80s heyday albums. It's bookended by two thrash songs, a second song that's fast and heavy, third song that's heavy but slows it a bit down, fourth song is the power ballad, fifth song is the complex thrash anthem, sixth song slows it a bit down, second to last song is the instrumental. Hardwired is supposed to be a double album with two discs, despite the album's total amount of time fitting within one 80-minute CD. The first disc starts a bit more familiar. Thrash opener, fast second track, heavy third track, but then it switches around for the next three songs, and the closest thing to a power ballad closes out disc 1. You expect disc 2 to be the same kind of formula, but in fact it's literally 5 mid-tempo songs on the experimental sides before closing out with an epic thrash anthem. I remember the first listen that I had with the second disc, I'm thinking, this is getting a little boring, this is getting a little stale. Death Magnetic takes you in many different directions, like any Metallica album should. As said before, the structure is similar to their heyday, making it easier to listen to from front to back. Hardwired with the weird double album format and the second disc sounding pretty similar for 5 straight songs at first listen really doesn't do much. Since Death Magnetic flows better as an album, the point for structure is going to go to Magnetic. For musicianship and songwriting, both of these albums are pretty much a mix between And Justice for All and the Black Album. However, Hardwired has elements of load mixed in as well, a little bit more than Magnetic does. Magnetic shows off Metallica's musicianship a lot more. Each song on Magnetic is complex like Justice, with multiple sections and tempo changes. Aside from the album's closer, every song is more than 7 minutes long on average. Hardwired is much less complex by comparison. The only real complex song is Spit Out the Bone, and maybe Moth and Halo. But other than that, each song is pretty consistent throughout. It's similar to the Black Album and Load in that vein, one or two riffs to get the point across. And besides Halo, every song is less than 7 minutes long on average. There's also major differences in songwriting credits. Magnetic has every song with writing credits from all 4 members of the band, while Hardwired seemingly went back to the old Hetfield-Ulrich formula. Pretty much all of them only credit the duo, minus one song with Trujillo on Man Unkind. So it's notable for Kirk Hammett not having any writing credits, and he has said in interviews that he had a lot of riff ideas, but he lost his phone, and virtually had no material for Hardwired, while Hetfield and Ulrich did. Which one has better songwriting? Well, I give the point to Magnetic, simply because it has contributions from everyone, shows off their songwriting abilities a little bit more. Some say they like the simpler songs on Hardwired, but in my case, I like the complex anthems that are present on Magnetic. Magnetic's lyrical themes pretty much revolve around what else? Puppies. No, death. Aww. Hetfield was quoted as saying, "The title to me started out as kind of a tribute to people that have fallen in our business, like Lane Staley and a lot of other people that have died. Basically, it's rock and roll martyrs of sorts." And it kind of grew from there. Thinking about death, some people are drawn towards it, and just like a magnet, and other people are kind of afraid of it and push. Hardwired to Self-Destruct centrally is more about how we as human beings are seemingly pre-wired to mentally break down, whether by choice or circumstance. Both albums have influences by H.P. Lovecraft, and certain songs like Day That Never Comes and Now That We're Dead could actually fit more on the other album. The themes are pretty familiar territory for Metallica fans, as plenty of songs from their heyday had similar themes. Master of Puppets is a huge example. While there is no interpersonal songs that dominated the Load and Reload era, the only thing that is really missing from the heyday is the anti-war themes. Unless you count Confusion, which is more about a soldier with PTSD. So when it comes to the lyrics and the themes, the point there is a tie. Last but not least, you have the songs. You have Hardwired's 12 songs versus Magnetic's 10. Don't forget Beyond Magnetic! And Death Magnetic's 10. No, Lords of Summer doesn't count either. At the end of the day, it matters, do you even like the songs? So let's start off right away with my least favorite songs on each album. On Death Magnetic, Unforgiven 3 is not a bad song. I like the main riff and the upbeat nature of it, but it's still the weakest of the Unforgiven trilogy and the album. Cyanide is understandably a popular single, and I loved it when it first came out, but compared to the rest of the album, it's definitely one of the weaker songs. On Hardwired, Murder 1 is a song that I really don't care about. Look, I know it's a tribute to Lemmy, but when I think of Motorhead, I don't think of slow intros with a mid-tempo riff. I think of something with a chug, with a speed metal edge. Am I Savage is also one of the weaker songs. I like the middle breakdown, but other than that, it's not one of my favorites. So both albums have two pretty weak songs. However, if I have to pick which songs is better, I prefer the weaker songs on Magnetic to Hardwired. What about the songs I really like? On Magnetic, I love That Was Just Your Life, The Day That Never Comes, All Nightmare Long, Judas Kiss, Suicide and Redemption, and My Apocalypse. On Hardwired, I pretty much love the title track, Atlas, Moth, Halo, and Spit. 6 songs I love versus 5. On Magnetic, The End of the Line and Broken, Beat, and Scarred are fun as well, and even Cyanide is a fun song to jam to when you hear it live. On Hardwired, Now That We're Dead is fun, especially as a live song, and I also like Confusion and Here Comes Revenge. Dream No More and Man Unkind, on the other hand, they're almost as weak as Savage and Murder, but not as weak if you get my drift. Your final score? Well, when Hardwired first came out, the score initially wasn't even close. I knew upon first listen that this album would be a grower, not a shower. Well, Hardwired has grown on me a lot. However, Magnetic still edges it out, but barely. 9 songs I like versus Magnetic's 8. The mix may not be as good as Hardwired, but it's structured better and shows off Metallica's musicianship a bit more. At the end of the day, it's my favorite band making new music and doing more tours. You can tell me in the comments, do you agree? Which album do you think is better? And why? After all, the comment section is always right. Right?